You are tuning in to Renewed Day by Day with Pastor LaRosa. Here's the next part of our lesson called Who's in Charge?
And then in 2018, July 8th, I was preparing for furlough, so I wasn't paying much attention. And I remember that I heard the message, and it was excellent. God remains God when creatures choose freedom, when creatures use freedom to choose. This is by our own Speaker Marvin at GMF. And I put it in my archives because I wanted to save it. There's another message too on this subject, and both of them are excellent, and I'm going to use them in the next couple of weeks. Just a few verses here and there and a couple of concepts, so that we really understand this subject, because it comes up. Especially if you listen to a guy like John MacArthur, you really got to be careful with this, and so we want to understand it. Okay. I've used this chart for many, many years. This is actually a secular chart. It's by Stephen Covey. And I ran onto this about 20, 25 years ago, maybe 30 years ago. It was in a book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And this part of it was good. And he's talking from a secular level. He's a Mormon. He's very good in establishment. He's not good. He doesn't base this on the Bible. He bases it on just simple understanding, and he shows that we have the freedom to choose. It's really a good chart, and so we need to understand this. And so the only problem with this particular person and book and chart is it's just limited in time. We have to understand the impact it has on eternity. That's what's important, and it must be biblically based, just not establishment based. And so here's a book that I've had in my library for a long time. A good friend named Weeks, Pastor Weeks. He's an excellent pastor. He's a black pastor. He lives in the West Coast in the United States. Can't think of his first name right now. You say, what a good friend, huh? But I forget things like that. But he gave me this book, Chosen But Free, and it's such an excellent book. And I read some of it then, but now I'm using it, and I want to use a little bit of it today and next week and the week after. And then I want to talk to our teachers, our elder teachers, those that communicate, Pastor Danny Marvin, Kay Ginto, and others, Teacher Israel. I want to talk to them about certain portions of this book so that we can all be unified on this subject. It's such an important subject. So, where do we start? Where do we start on this subject? That can be confusing. I struggled with that this week. Where do we start? Then I remember my mentor said, always start with God. Always start with God. And start with His attributes. So that's exactly where the book on heathenism starts, and that's where we're going to start. So there's many attributes of God. They're called the attributes of God. R.B. Thiem called it the essence of God. This book calls it the characteristics of God. And Teacher Israel taught this recently. And there's a lot more than these, but R.B. Thiem narrowed it down to 10. And I've always liked these 10 because it's easy to remember. So the first one is sovereignty, and I have it highlighted. That's the first thing. And what happens if you get off balance in any of these 10, you tend to not be balanced in your presentation of this subject. So the first one is the sovereignty of God. And then, of course, righteousness, imputed righteousness, absolute righteousness, perfect righteousness, the only righteousness that will get you to heaven. And then justice, perfect justice. God cannot be unfair to even one person on this planet. And so we know that He's always fair. And then love, perfect love. God so loved the world that He gave His Son. He so loved the world that He gave His Son. That's perfect love. If that's not true, then the Bible's not true, because it says it over and over again in the Bible. And so we have to understand that. And then eternal life is what He offers. It's forever life. And it's a life that can never be taken from you once He gives it to you. Now, it's true that your soul and spirit, your soul is eternal, whether you're a believer or unbeliever, whether you go to heaven or hell. But eternal life is heaven. It's with God. And that's very important, the way you get it. It's by faith alone and by grace alone, and we need to understand it. Now, the one that's also important this morning is omnipotence is all-powerful. Omni, all, potence, powerful, so all-powerful. Omniscience is the one that we're going to combine with sovereignty this morning. Omniscience, all-knowing. And not only that, out of His omniscience comes His foreknowledge. He can see everything ahead. That's how we get Bible prophecy, and we'll explain that. And then, of course, His omnipresence. He's everywhere. He's present at every moment. And then, of course, veracity, truth. The Bible and God's character is absolute truth. He cannot lie. That's a violation of His character. He reveals the truth. He cannot manipulate us. He cannot deceive us. He cannot say something He doesn't mean and it's not true. And then, of course, there's His immutability, His essence, His attributes, His characteristics. His character does not change. And out of His immutability comes His faithfulness. His faithfulness. Out of His immutability. His mercies are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. That comes from His immutability. Okay, so that's where we start. We're going to focus on the highlighted ones, sovereignty and omniscience, this morning. So the sovereignty of God, let's take a look at it. Now listen carefully. Listen to this. Our God, who is before all things, created all things, upholds all things, sustains it, knows all things, and can do all things, is also in control of all things. That's including angels, both elect good angels, holy angels, and fallen evil angels. He's in control of them. He's even in control of Satan. He's giving him a long leash, and there's a permissive will, but He's in control. He's in control of all people, all rulers, all presidents, all politicians, all of them. He's in control. He's in control of all events. He permits it. And you say, I don't know why He permitted that. You'll find out when you get to heaven. Sometimes you find out before you get to heaven. But He's in control. Another thing, this is called the sovereignty of God. I love this. Nothing catches God by surprise. Oh no, Russia invaded Ukraine. Oh no, China might invade Taiwan. Oh no, Marcos is president. Nothing catches God by surprise. Nothing. Nothing in your life catches Him by surprise. He knew it before time began. Now look at the focus. All what? Science. All knowing. He knows everything about every scientific fact, everything. He's omniscient. He's all knowing. He even knows iffy history. What would have happened if you'd have made this choice, but you didn't? And His foreknowledge knows everything in the future. Everything. Wow. So, you say, and here's another thing. God rules all things. God rules over all things. Listen to this verse in 1 Chronicles 29, 11 and 12. Yours, O Lord, is the greatness and the power and the glory and the majesty and the splendor. For everything in heaven and earth is yours. Yours, O Lord, is the kingdom. You are exalted as head over all. Wealth and honor come from you. You are the what? The ruler of all things. Presidents, kings, history, your life, your death, everything. He rules all of it. He's over it. Some people say, just wait a minute. Hey, by the way, I want to tell you something. This week I'm going to sound like a Calvinist, a hyper-extreme Calvinist. Next week I'm going to sound like an Arminian, someone that believes it's all our choices. So we're going to bring it together. Just hang in there. Don't get confused. Someone might say this. In fact, I took this right out of this book. I want you to listen to it. Just a minute. That's an English phrase we use when, wait a minute, something doesn't sound right there. Okay, listen to this. If God is sovereign, then how can we be free? Does not divine sovereignty make a sham, a joke of human responsibility? Is not a sovereign God a giant puppet master pulling the strings of human puppets at his will? If God is in complete control of everything, including human choice, then how can we be truly free? This is from Norman Geisler's book, okay, Chosen but Free. And that's an excellent, excellent statement to think about. So let's look at it. Are not sovereignty and significant free will mutually exclusive? It means there's no way they could be united, coherent, compatible. There's no way. The answer to that is no. There is a way. The Bible shows us the way. It's very clear in the Bible. So let's look at it. This is, again, Norman Geisler. Now listen, think of a coin, heads and tails. On the other side of the coin from divine sovereignty is human responsibility and free choice. And Speaker Marvin's message brought that out very well in that lesson I told you about. Free choice. We'll look at it and see how it works together. Okay? I will show you biblically and logically, I'm going to give you a logical conclusion, that they are not mutually exclusive. They are coherent. They are compatible. They do work together in the Bible especially. And we'll start looking at that in part 2 next week.
Thank you for watching Renewed Day by Day with Pastor Ralph LaRosa. Stay tuned to our channel. We'll continue our lesson on the next video. God bless you and stay healthy.